fallout, smoke, women crying for their sons because their sons are not, Romans killing riotous groups that are rising up, free Judea, free our people, autonomy for Israel. You had Herod, an Edomite, and his dynasty. Herod's ruling, killing any potential threat, any potential Messiah. Then you had the Pharisees and the Sadducees, that we learn from Josephus are not Jews by birth. No.
What's up, BZ Dynasty? This is your boy, the man, the myth, and the legend, Mr. JB Zion. Y'all show me some love and welcome back to Zion Dynasty. First, I want to say shalom to all my Israelite brothers and sisters. I also want to send out a shalom to all my Gentile viewers and welcome back to the channel. So as you guys probably already know, we've been dealing with our Black History Month segment, our Black Power series, where we're going to be exploring the different Black Power ideologies. You guys, we're going to deal with everything as much as we can. And you guys drop any comments if you have anything else that goes into the topic, right? So we're going to be dealing with Black Power groups. Is there a commonality between the ideologies, right? We're going to deal with Khemit. Are Black people Egyptians? Are we linked to Ramses III? We're going to deal with the Nation of Islam, Fareed Muhammad, Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, Louis Farrakhan, right? That train of thought, the Black Christian activist group, right? We're going to deal with Dr. King's ideology, nonviolence, integration, desegregation, and all that kind of thing. And we're going to deal with Hebrew Israelism, and also we're going to put the Moors in there too, guys. We're going to deal with Al-Andalus, because a lot of that Moorish history is what led to the Nation of Islam and that kind of thing. Also, Marcus Garvey and his Back to Africa Pan-Africanism movement, which is the greatest of its kind, right? The greatest unification of the Black diaspora in contemporary history was Marcus Garvey. And we're going to glean from him a little bit. But first, so it's going to be a massive task, guys. It's a lot of history. I just want to kind of get you guys to think that I'm just going to spoiler alert, go ahead and say it, and put my hypothesis out, right? My hypothesis is that the Israelite identity and ethnicity is the what links all these groups together. When you explore Noble Drew Ali, Master Richelieu, you see from the Moorish mindset. So from the Moorish mindset, you see how early on the early Moors saw themselves as actually Israelites. And I'm going to prove a lot of that. We see, even with Khemitic community, the Khemitic community, that a lot of what they believe coincides with Israelite history from a Egyptian mindset. Our people were in there. We were in Egypt. So we got that, and then we got the Nation of Islam, which drew a lot from that Moorish, Master Richelieu, Moorish Zion Temple, Moorish Science Temple. Fareed Muhammad being one of the underlings under the Moorish Zion Temple. We're going to see, y'all, how Hebrew Israelite influence, or the idea that African Americans descend from the ancient Israelites, was the underlying ideology that links a lot of these together, a lot of these different Black Power groups. So I do want to pull this up a little bit, guys. This is like a working thesis that I kind of have, mapping out this journey of linking these groups together. Right, so we got Kemetic science, masonry. I'm gonna put that in there in terms of a lot of that Kemetic science was linked to hidden knowledge and secret knowledge and that kind of thing. Nubian Nation of Moors, Moorish Science Temple. We're just gonna talk about some of these topics. Nation of Islam, Hebrew Israelites, right? So when you look at the term Moor, it denotes an ethnicity linked to really Africa itself. A lot of those early Moors, those Berbers, those Maghreb, North African people were the Moors that made up the Moorish Empire, right? Now you had some Arabs in there that came in and kind of galvanized this group, but the predominant Moors during that time in history were African people, were dark people, right? So I'm not gonna go too much into that on this video, but I just want to get you guys thinking about how these different groups are connected, because we're going to try to touch each and every one of them to see that truth is unified. There is a common thread that has been working through all these different Black leaders that we've had. They've all been fueled by the black man's identity and ethnicity, right? So it's a lot, you guys. So now I've already kind of gone over a lot of this stuff with regard to the Yoruba and them being linked to Israel, but I do want to give a quick kind of review, not too long. I know a lot of my people that are already on the journey with us have heard this information time and time and again, but I just want to put that out there for people that are first-time viewers, right? So based on the oral tradition of the Yoruba, I'm going to pull that up a little bit. Based on their oral tradition, there is a group known as the Bani Ephraim that live in Nigeria, that live among the Yoruba. Their oral tradition is that they came from Morocco after the Jews were banished from Spain, Iberian Peninsula in 1492. They even speak Arabic and that kind of thing, and this is well documented. Let me pull that back up, right? So now a lot of people try to say that the Yoruba are indigenous to the area in Nigeria that they're located today. Most scholars debunk this. I mean, even the Yoruba themselves say that they come from Egypt, they come from Medina, they come from Mecca, they come from that Middle Eastern area, right? So now let's just deal with that Bani Ephraim oral tradition. As we saw in the Jewish Virtual Library, it's a bunch of other sources, you guys, that kind of talk about this. That there is a Ifran, or a Jewish community that lives in Morocco, or is from Morocco, right? Many legends have been created about this ancient community, that a Jewish kingdom was set up there by the Afriat family. Now, if you look at that word Afriat, it sounds a lot like the continent of Africa itself, right? And I'm going to do a video on linking the continent of Africa, the name of Africa itself, to this people, this Afrati or Afriat family, right? Now, that's a big undertaking, because when you guys look at Africa, a lot of us don't think that, well, back in the time period of antiquity, Africa and the Maghreb, or Africa and Morocco, or Africa and Libya, and all these North African regions was synonymous with the entire continent at one point. So you can see how the different major groups that are in North Africa are also what could have fueled the way we call Africa today, right? Because in antiquity you called it Ethiopia, or you might hear Africa referred to as Kush, right? So my hypothesis is that it's named after this Afriat or Afrati people, which belonged to the tribe of Ephraim, because you had so many Ephraimites of North Africa, Mauritania and Libya and Algeria, and all these different Jewish groups. El Kahina, who fought against the Romans that tried to take over Africa, was the first. This was the first group of opposition that the Romans faced when they came into the continent, right? When Carthage was set up and the Romans were setting up their shop in Africa, they had to face El Kahina, who was documented, Ardaya, as an Ephraimite of the Afrati family. So as we see, there's a lot of Judeo influence into the land of the continent of Africa itself. We already talked about the Yoruba, saying that they come from Ephraimite people of Morocco. This is verified by the Jewish Virtual Library that there is a Ephraimite family, or a Afriat family, in Morocco. So this is the thing: either the Yoruba made that up, but then you got to ask yourself, how would they have known if the Yoruba are indigenous to that area in Nigeria? How did they talk about an Ephraimite family from Morocco when there is a documented Ephraimite family in Morocco? Even the Jewish Virtual Library attests to this. So there's no way they would have been able to just make that up unless they either came from that people, or there was a group of that people that came into modern day Yoruba territories and disseminated this oral tradition, because it is factual, right? Another source that I've already been over, you guys, is about the Sephardic Al-Dahudi, or David family, who are descended from the children of the last murdered Rosh Hagolah, or Exilarch, Chiskia of Baghdad. This is where you get into a lot of Afghanistan Jewish Pashtun people that are Jewish, right? Or that have Israelite links, whose children in the generation of Rabbi Yehuda Halevi fled to safety in Spain. So you have this Exilarch David family that fled into Spain. Rabbi Abraham ben David the chronicler of the 12th century mentions this in his book, which I have that book. As it seems, several other families later branched out. So you have a massive Al-David or Al-Dahudi family, which is just Arabic. You have a massive David family that has a lot of branches, including the Don Yayas or the Abarbanels, who also never cease to trace their origin from King David. But y'all check this out. So we find them in Spain, but it says those related to the David family, we find after the expulsion of the Jews from Spain, we find them in Morocco. So this is another source. This is the DavidicDynasty.org. And they're saying that you find this David family in Spain, and after their expulsion from Spain, we find them in Morocco. This is verified the Jewish Virtual Library, that we find this family, this Ephraimite family, in Morocco. Then the Yoruba, who are more sub-Saharan, or as you go down, right, in Africa, they're saying that they come from a migration downward from Morocco of Jews that were expelled from Spain in 1492. So you just see all these different sources corroborating this Jewish people that were banished from Spain, that were in Morocco, and then ended up in West Africa, right? And that's where we went through all the DNA. Now, y'all got to check those videos out. My True Ancestry. I did mine. It says that I am Yoruba, but I am Spanish, or from the Iberian Peninsula, Al-Andalus. When you click Al-Andalus, it shows you. That was just the Arabic term for Muslim Iberia, which fits, y'all check this out. Let me close this back. Which fits the oral tradition of the Iberian Jews of Yoruba nationality, right? So I did my True Ancestry. My paternal haplogroup, for the sake of all of us finding out, well, how do I know if I'm this people, if I do my 23andMe or something? I found out I was EZ16052, which before they changed it, it was EL45. Which is, if you go to isogg.org, it shows you that EZ16052 is E1B1A. So, for all my brothers that are wondering, and shout out to my brother T. Turner. Let me show you, bro, on this video. I know you check out these videos faithfully, bro, and I just want to thank you, man. He's one of my bros, you guys. Day one followers of the channel. As you see, EP252, right, is E1B1A. Some sources say E1B1A, 1A, 1F, A1. But it's the same thing. E1B1A 7A basically. So as you see, EP252 is a father group of this EZ16052, and y'all can check out isogg.org that'll kind of show you that science. So majority of African Americans are E1B1A if they do their father's lineage, which more than not you're gonna be linked to Yoruba or Igbo people that have a Spanish oral tradition that they migrated from Iberia or Spain, right? And that's corroborated. Excuse me. So when you guys go to GEDmatch, it'll also show you, if you do different projects, a lot of Moroccan, North African influence, which suggests that our people did in fact migrate from these regions. Another project I did shows a lot of Moroccan Jews on my chromosomes, North African Jews, right? Which fits the oral tradition. So guys, we got all this heavy Spanish, heavy Sephardic Israelite migrating oral tradition that is backed by the science. And as we did in our previous video, y'all check out the history of the word Negro, right? If you look up Merriam-Webster Dictionary of Negro, check this out. If you go down to the bottom where it tells you when it was first implemented, it says it was first known used, or its first known use was in 1555, right? And it is of Spanish or Portuguese from the word Negro, which is black, origin, or Latin Niger or nigger, right? This is why we were called these terms in slavery. They knew who we were. These older terms like nigger and Negro are linked to this Spanish history, which is our history. This is how Christopher Columbus knew in 1492 how to get these slaves, or where they were located, right? Because the Moors, some of them had went to the Americas, and he also had received license from Queen Isabella of Spain to engage in this slave trade practice, because they had banished hundreds of thousands of black or Moorish Israelites into Africa via the Canary Islands, via Sao Tome, and a lot of them migrated from Morocco or from Portugal into Morocco into West Africa, right? So y'all got to check out all those other videos. I'm gonna pick cards up where the word Negro itself is Spanish in origin. This is corroborated by our oral tradition that we came from Spain or the Maghreb, North Africa. When we were banished, we went into West Africa. Okay, so that's just a quick review, you guys. I'm gonna do follow-ups from time to time on this history, but right now we want to do a timeline video. We want to talk about the history of black power groups, but first we're gonna deal with this whole misnomer that this whole Yoruba and Igbo being Jews is linked to Samuel L. Johnson, the Christian missionary. Now I'm just gonna read something for you guys, right? So now, Oduduwa, a lot of people may already have heard of him being the founder of the Yoruba people, right? There is a common statement that he was said to be a descendant of Ham through Nimrod. Now I'm gonna explain where that came from a little bit in another video about Muhammad Bello, and why he said that the Yoruba were of the providence of Nimrod. Now, Nimrod is the father of Babylon as well as Assyria, right? This is why the Assyrian Empire came, then the Babylonian Empire came. They are linked as a people. But as you know, they were over Israel. Assyria conquered the northern kingdom, and they had Israel as a providence under them. So that explains. I'm going to do a video on that, you guys. So Oduduwa was said to be a descendant of Ham, and this is because of that, through Nimrod, also called Lamurudu, right? This according to Yoruba Christian Samuel Johnson in 1880. So a lot of people will try to say that, well, this stuff just started, the Yoruba just started because Samuel Johnson put that idea in the Yoruba's head that they were Israel, right? Now check this out though. Sultan Bello, Caliph of Sokoto, was quoted in 1820 by Hugh Clapperton to have said that the Yoruba people were descendant of a Canaanite tribe, right? And Eso Obiaku, a Nigerian historian, claimed the Yorubas to originate from the Sudan, or what was known as Kush or Ethiopia. So you have a lot of people saying that the Yoruba come from Ethiopia, or they come from East Africa, or that they come from that region, or a people that migrated to that present region. Hugh Clapperton saying that they were descendants of Canaanite tribe. Canaan is just the land of Israel, so that doesn't necessarily mean Ham. It just means that they descend from a people that lived in Israel, right? You see how that carries a different connotation when you say it that way. Let's go down a little bit, you guys. Now this same source, let's go about right here, says that there is a Yoruba people. Oh no, I skipped. Let me go back. That same source says, but the current Yoruba Jewish population who claimed to come from the Israeli tribe of Ephraim was said to have been driven to Yoruba land from Morocco by Muslims and eventually mingled with the Yoruba people. Now I'm gonna deal with that, you guys. The founding of the Yoruba are Ephraimites from King Jeroboam, or Yoruba. That's where you get the word Yoruba from, is King Jeroboam. Now he was also an Ephrathite. Now I'm gonna do some history into Ephrathite families of Bethlehem and different stuff. But the founding Ephraimites are different from the modern E1B1A Ephraimites that came when they were banished from Spain. This is why the B'nai Ephraim mingled with the Yoruba people, because they were the same people. That's how they knew to migrate amongst these people. These black Jews in southern Nigeria are called Imo Yokwayim, and we've seen that in the oral tradition already in this source that we read. And there's a lot of sources that verify this, you guys. Some of y'all might be saying, well, what scholarly sources verify that this B'nai Ephraim, right? This is a Cambridge source, right, by Ulysses Santa Maria, Cambridge. And he also talks about in southern Nigeria, the natives are called black Jews, the strange people, Imo Yokwayim, or the B'nai Ephraim. So Cambridge also talks about this B'nai Ephraim, which we learn from scholarship, are the Yoruba. They live among the Yoruba. They were driven there by the Muslims They mixed with the Yoruba because this was their people. They knew these people were founded as Israelites. And check out Derek Lang and his work on that, his anthropological work. So I just want to kind of just let you guys see that during the 1800s, you did see massive mention of the Yoruba being Israelites. But this extends all the way back to 1820, but it also extends back to Muhammad Bello, who is way before this, right? So the Israelite movement did not just begin with Frank S. Cherry or Samuel Crowdy and these guys that a lot of urban apologists will say, well, it just started in 1890 or something. During that time, that's when black people started saying this. That may have been when American people started awakening to this information, right? Or doing their DNA, or the Most High showing them different old books. But us being Israel extends back to the beginning of time, you guys. The Africans already had this oral tradition. It's just our people more contemporarily started around the 1890s saying this. So now we're going to show you I'm going to show you guys a timeline of just black power groups around the 1800s and kind of show you when this stuff started getting going, right? So now I love this site. I found this timeline, and it kind of helps put all this stuff into perspective because there's a lot of different black power groups. When you talk about the Black Panthers, when you talk about Marcus Garvey and the Nation of Islam, it's a lot. So I like this site because this timeline, it gives you a good comprehensive view of these movements, right? So in the 1830s, during this time of the 1800s, you had the abolitionist movement, the famous abolitionists. You had Charles Henry Langston, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass. So during the early 1800s, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, W.E.B. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington. This is when these mighty black spokesmen and champions for our race were all on the same playing field. They were all operating in the same time frame, I guess is what I'm trying to say, right? So you had all these great thinkers and African American abolitionists that were all working in the 1800s, the early 1800s, which is amazing, you guys. You also won't see Marcus Garvey come on the scene, but basically in 1842 you start seeing Negroes infiltrate the church in terms of black activism. You start seeing that black activist thought take root. 1886, this is where a lot of urban apologists say that the black nationalist or black liberation movement started with Frank S. Cherry, who was teaching that black people were the children of Israel, we the chosen people, and we were Jews and that kind of thing. You see that taking root in the black church around 1886. And William Saunders Crowdy, William Crowdy also kind of piggybacked this same ideological framework in 1896. Now it kind of skips around, but in 1889 is when the Moorish Zion Temple of Moorish Jews was founded by Master Richelieu, who is the honorable and the noble founder of the Moors, right? Now this is 1889. So you saw that Frank S. Cherry was teaching we were Israel in 1886. And then in 1889, the Moors were founded. And it was known as the Moorish Zion Temple. Now, a lot of Moors may or may not know this history, and a lot of our people don't know that the Moorish organization, or the Moorish ideology, right, with the fez and all, that it began, watch this, teaching that ethnically African Americans, so-called, right, were Israelites or Jews. Now this is showing you the link, right? So now let's keep going. We had a Pentecostal movement that started in 1901. Just giving you guys a basic timeline. In 1909, the NAACP is founded by white Jews, which is interesting. How that organization kind of is stalemated. I mean, they ain't really doing nothing. But you see how them white Jews try to get in and kind of operate some of these black organizations, which they've always been doing, them Ashkenazis. But in 1913, the Moorish Science Temple, which is the Honorable Noble Drew Ali, founded that organization, which is an offshoot, like we said, of the Moorish Zion Temple of 1889. Now in 1914, we see Marcus Messiah Garvey and the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League be founded. So during this time, Marcus Garvey comes to the scene, a prolific Pan-Africanist, the greatest arguably in the history of our people, or contemporarily speaking. He comes on the scene preaching Black Power, Pan-Africanism, going back to Africa movement. He started teaching that we need our own flag, we need our own culture, we need our own God and our own image. All of this was Marcus Garvey. I mean, I didn't learn too much about him growing up in school, how great this man was and the work that he did for our people. He was born in Jamaica, and he was the Pan-Africanist, right? And his whole idea was that he liked segregation. He was like, we need to be separate from these people. We need our own land. And you guys understand, Abraham Lincoln's first mindset with regard to our people was for us to have our own land. Before he did the Emancipation Proclamation, he wanted to cede a certain area of Africa, I think it was Libya, to African Americans or the diaspora, right? Now we see in 1919 the Commandment Keepers, and if I'm not mistaken, the Commandment Keepers is what gave way to camps like IUIC, right? They kind of have their root in the Commandment Keepers. So you guys, I'm gonna do a follow-up on this video because I'm seeing it's going pretty long, but I just want you guys to kind of see that each one of these Black Power organizations are linked, all from the concept of Black autonomy, us being separate, us having our own land, our own identity, and that we were chosen by our God, and that whole chosen people of God concept started with us entertaining the idea that we were ethnically the children of Israel. That was the foundation of the Black Liberation Movement, right? Was us being the children of Israel. Because keep in mind, family, when we looked at, let me go back to that source. When we looked at the Yoruba sons of Ephraim, it was already known in the early 1820s by Hugh Clapperton that the Yoruba were said to be Israel. So you already have on the continent of Africa our people being said to have come from Israel, and that at the same time that ideology is starting in the 1830s, or specifically in about 1842, that black people are the chosen people. So you see both places where our people are starting to think along these lines, which gave way to the Moors, which gave way to the Pentecostal movement and a lot of other black power church ideologies. And then, you know, the Moore Science Temple, the UNIA under Marcus Garvey, who also believed we should have a God in our image, right? So he was already thinking along those lines. And then you have the Commandment Keepers, which is the father of a lot of the camps that we have today. And then in 1930, we have the Nation of Islam be found by Wallace Fareed Muhammad. Now, Fareed Muhammad was said to be one of the master builders under the Moorish Science Temple, which is also under the Moorish Zion Temple. So you see how each one of them is linked, saying that we are the original Jews, that we need to have our own language, our own land, our own everything, right? All of this is linked. Israel getting back to the land, we being the chosen people, we being the true Israelites. All of this is linked. So the Nation of Islam comes into foundation in 1930, July 4th. And then 1954, we had the Civil Rights Movement, right? And we're going to talk about Dr. King's ideology and how he wanted to be more militant going in. But he had people kind of talk him down from that place because they feared we weren't going to be able to be successful trying to fight fire with white folks, right? But Dr. King, the person, did kind of have the same sentiment as a Malcolm X and that kind of thing, which they don't tell you. So we're going to do more in-depth study on each one of these groups, you guys. We're going to refer to this timeline. In the next video, we're going to go into detail on Marcus Messiah Garvey and his ideology and how effective that was and what we need to use as a template today. And how the Hebrew Israelite ideology gives us all of that. A flag, symbolism, an identity, a culture, an ethnicity, the idea of having our own land. All of that is embedded within the Judeo-African text. right? So we're going to look at Marcus Garvey in the next segment of this Black Power series, where we're going to go through these different groups. I know it's a lot of information, you guys. I'm not going to try to have the videos be too long. I'm going to try to just to keep you guys engaged and your attention, you know. But if anything, I just want you guys to get from this video that around the same time, black people in America are saying we're the chosen people, and this is leading to a lot of different groups. In Africa, you have our people that we come from, the tribes we come from, also have this same history, right? And then so you got Francis Cherry, you got William Crowdy. This leads to the Moors and the Moor Zion Temple. Then you got Pentecostal movements, NAACP, the Moor Science Temple, which is an offshoot of the Moor Zion Temple. And then after that, a year later, 1914, you have Marcus Garvey and his UNIA movement of Back to Africa, getting us back to Africa. Got the Commandment Keepers coming 5 years later with the camps. But all the while, you see the Israelite influence. You see the idea of us being the original Jews embedded within the timeline of black power groups being started. So with that, you guys, I just gave you guys something to think about. I know I dropped a lot of science and all these things, guys. We're going to do more in the other videos, and I love y'all. Peace, love, blessings, black power to the chosen race, to the 12 tribes that are scattered abroad. And with that, you all, shalom.